Welcome to episode 187 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I speak to Dougie Payne from Travis about their new album, LA Times. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to Rob Marshall from Humanist. So check it out, and if you like the podcast, please subscribe on your favourite listening platform, give us a rating, and leave a comment. Glasgow's Travis return with their 10th studio album, LA Times, which the band describe as their most personal album since The Man Who. In this interview, Travis bassist Dougie Payne talks about the writing and recording of the album, his favourite Travis songs, their upcoming tour, and lots more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Dougie Payne from Travis. So hi Dougie, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. I like to go back to the start with my guests. Mm-hmm. Can you remember the first band or artist that made you pay attention to music?
Yeah. Music was, because I grew up with three older sisters. They were quite a lot older than me. It was 10, 13 and 8 years older than me. Linda, Jill and Sandra. So I grew up in a pop house. I was surrounded by teenage girls and pop music from as long as I could, from as far back as I can remember. So there was Top of the Pops. It was Essential. That was everything. There was Jackie magazine and David Cassidy annuals and all of this, pop ephemera all over the house. And pop music was everywhere. But my middle sister, Jill, had a weirdly anachronistic taste in music. So this would be like the mid-70s, right? But she was really into the early Beatles, right? Crucially, it was just the early Beatles. It was like the first 5 albums. She went up to Help. She didn't go to Rubber Soul and beyond. She went from Please Please Me to Help. And she was obsessive about the Beatles. And so she was in the room next to me. So I would hear all these records coming through the wall, all these early Beatles records, and they just seeped into my DNA, as a 2-year-old. And years later, people would kind of go, how do you know all the words to, Chains or Anna Go to Him or No Reply or kind of quite deep Beatles cuts? And I was like, well, they're just in me. It's like they became part of me. So that was the first music that seeped in. But the first thing that kind of was actually a conscious memory was Jill sat me down when I was about 6, and she said, you should listen to this record. She played me Hunky Dory, start to finish. And that was like all the doors opening, all the lights going on, everything just kind of suddenly, it was like I came online, mm-hmm. And it was literally mind blowing. And it felt like, I wouldn't have known the words at the time, but it felt like a window into a possible life, into a creative life or a bohemian life or an artistic life. It was like this other world that was somehow like a spell, like magically available. It was there, and every song, just changed the atmosphere in the room or changed the temperature of the room and changed the color. And it was like, I've never been the same since. So, I've been, I've been kind of a Bowie obsessive since, so probably from the age of 6 because of it. And it changed my life.
Yeah, I've done hundreds of interviews over the years. The Beatles always get a mention, but Hunky Dory is the one album that is a constant that gets mentioned in interviews, which is more than anything. It's a great album.
It's a masterpiece. And the weird thing about that is that, like I say, I'm a complete Bowie nut. And I always kind of say that Hunky Dory is obviously the best album ever made, but I don't even know if it's my favorite Bowie album. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So from David Bowie, the Beatles, When did you choose that you wanted to pick up an instrument, and why the bass guitar?
Well, I wanted to pick up an instrument. I sang in school bands from about the age of 10. We formed a little school band and kind of, end of primary school. So, so that was interesting. And I just wanted to be in music. Music was kind of what I lived for, buying records, buying smash hits, all of that stuff, pop music, watching Top of the Pops. It was my whole world, really. And I just wanted to be in it. And so I was singing. My dad always played the piano, so I'd kind of mess around in the piano. I kind of like that. And then my brother-in-law got me a saxophone. He got a saxophone at a kind of jumble sale. And so that the saxophone was the first instrument I actually kind of picked up and practiced, And then I was like, well, this is great. This is all. And I loved it because that was Bowie's first instrument. And I was like, yeah, me and him, but just the same, And so I did that for a while, and then I kind of was like, well, I can't sing with this in my mouth. So I got my dad to get me an acoustic guitar for my 14th birthday, maybe 15th, and so that was when I started kind of working out how to play guitar, and then that was it. And me and Fran met when I was 17, and when we were both 17. And art had kind of entered the building, if you like. I wanted to go to art school, and it was music and art were these parallel things going along. And we just made each other laugh, in drawing class. And that was our friendship started from there. And we would just sit, play guitars, and me and Andy would play when eventually I got into art school. Me and Andy became really close separately to the band. And we would just, on a Friday night, get a couple of bottles of wine, go into the printmaking building. And this became like a kind of Friday social. It got bigger and bigger. And me and Andy would sit, play and sing Small Faces songs and all that stuff. And so I just was going along with art school, and eventually graduated. But Fran and Andy and Neil were all in this band, Glass Onion, which was going along simultaneously. Fran left art school second year to concentrate on it. And then in 96, Christmas 95, he was like, something's got to change. Something's got to change. He said, I want you to join the band. And I said, well, doing what? You and Andy play guitar. And he's like, play bass. And I was like, oh, I've never played a bass. And he was like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So I was saying no, because the band was a 5-piece and I was friends with all 5 of them. And I didn't want to step on anybody's toes, but Fran was very persuasive. He still is very persuasive. So he persuaded me to join the band, and he got rid of Jeff and Chris. And so then it was the 4 of us. And, he brought around a bass, and a really cheap old bass, and a tape with 5 songs on it. And he was like, learn these 5 songs, and then we'll go into the rehearsal room above the Horseshoe Bar, and we'll bash through them and see how it goes. And that was how we started.
Well, Travis released your 10th studio album, LA Times, from Glasgow to LA. Now I know Fran he's in LA now. He lives there. So yeah. How did you get the album together? Did the rest of the band have to fly to LA? Where was it recorded? Where was it written?
Well, the demos were kind of flying across the Atlantic, so we'd be sending stuff, and for about a year maybe, getting things together, getting ideas together. And then once we'd kind of got it to a distilled bunch of songs that we thought, these are really solid, these are really good. Then me, Andy, and Neil flew out to LA we've had a studio called Dave's Room for 3 weeks. Great studio, full of beautiful, beautiful vintage gear, amps and guitar. And we had the legendary Tony Hoffer to produce. So we went out and just went through everything that we had, and it couldn't have gone better. We didn't have a wasted day. It was such a joyful, fun session. And we came out of it with a bunch of songs that we were like, oh, this is amazing. Tony Hoffer did that brilliant thing that genius producers do, like Nigel Godrich, took the elements of each song and just worked out exactly what was important and elevated those things so that everything was hype and across every song, and made it sonically really beautiful and really impactful. And it's just, I don't know, it's got a kind of emotional and musical weight and authority to it, I think. I think it's really, I mean, I know everybody always says this, but I really think it's up there with their best record, which you don't expect from, a bunch of guys that have been doing it for 27 years and they're making their 10th record. I mean, I'm personally blown away by the record. I just think we're very proud of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's absolutely fantastic. I've been playing it quite a lot. You've recorded in LA a few times over the years. Have you noticed a change in LA when you went back this time?
Yeah, massive. It's changed. It's unrecognizable. Me and Andy, we had one day off actually. Me and Andy were like, let's go down to Sunset, right? We'll just we did a big walk. We went to the Hollywood sign, managed to get lost, but that's another story. And we were like, okay, let's go down to Sunset and we'll go to Ocean Way Studios where we recorded The Invisible Band. And then we'll go to the old Irish bar beside the guitar shop. We'll go into the guitar shop, get some bits and pieces, and then go to the end of Sunset and go to the Chateau Marmont where we stayed, go to the Bar Marmont for a cocktail. Perfect. And we got down to Sunset and it was like Skid Row. It was insane. Everything had shut down. It was just tents. It was like a tent village of homeless people in the street, You actually couldn't walk anywhere. Everything was shut down except for the giant, big, new, shiny Netflix and YouTube and Google offices, which were these giant, glossy skyscrapers. And it was a perfect visual metaphor for how things are there. It's like just poverty, just a sea of poverty, and these billionaires with their giant shiny buildings. It was like the polarity of that was eye-watering, and suddenly you were like, oh, this is why it's called LA Times, because LA is a good metaphor for how we're all are at the moment, how it is everywhere. Everybody's very polarized, everybody's very atomized, very separate, solipsistic. We're being gaslit by politics, by technology, by AI and deep fake, and we're just desperate for some kind of connection, human connection, hungry for reality, hungry not to feel like we're doubting ourselves, or doubting our own reality. And so it seems like it's a good title to reflect that. But I do feel hope, because I feel like things are changing. I feel like people do want real things. People do want to feel like they're engaging and apprehending real stuff. Whether it's just in a small way, like seeing a real band playing, just a bunch of guys playing, and if the leads get pulled out of their guitars, the music stops. There's a lot of bands not like that. And so I think people want vinyl now. People want, they want real stuff. They want to feel sure of their reality. And I think it actually kind of feeds into politics as well. It's like we've got a Labour government in the UK now, so that's great. You've got the left coalition in France kind of getting the votes to have a hung parliament. So it kind of feels like we're maybe starting to react against what's been going on the last few years, and I feel like, LA's like the canary in the coal mine. It's what's happening there is probably going to happen elsewhere a few years down the line. It's like the golden age of Hollywood was the 30s and 40s, all this wealth and all this fabulous, everything was beautiful and everything was optimistic. And then, then 10 years later, 50s, everybody's optimistic, and there's loads of money in the second half of the 20th century is going to be fantastic, and all this creativity and art and money is going to be flying around, So it's a good barometer.
Yeah. We need something to change. Absolutely.
I'm talking too much, haven't I?
No, work away. That's what we're here for. You mentioned Gaslight. Gaslight is one of the tracks on the album. It's actually one of my favorite tracks. It's a fantastic song.
Oh, it's great. It's I love that one. It's a lot of fun to play. This is the funny thing with doing these shows with the Killers. We obviously went into rehearse for a week or two, and it was like when we started playing the new song, it was like they'd been in the set for a year. They were effortless, and they made friends very quickly with the old songs,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just they sounded great from the minute one. And it's such a funny thing. It's like I don't know, the stars are aligning with these songs with this record. It's like all falling into place. And Gaslight is especially fun to play live. It's really, really great. And it's got that kind of slightly kinksy kind of piano, slightly doorsy. Also, I realized me and Franny did a TV show the other day, and Alex James was on it from Blur. And we played Gaslight, and I was like, oh, this actually is quite blurry. It's quite a Blur kind of sounding song, So it's the new stuff it sounds great, and Gaslight is it's a good song for the times, where it's gaslighting is, I think, the most Googled term in the world at the moment. Yes. And yeah, everybody's feeling it. Everybody's feeling that sense of doubt, as Bowie once said.
And you mentioned the Killers. You're currently on tour with the Killers at the minute. But there's a track on the album, Raze The Bar, which is fantastic, which also features Brandon Flowers and Chris Martin from Coldplay, about a fictional night in the black and white bar.
Yeah.
What's your best memories of drinking in that bar?
Oh, well, Fran and I both lived in New York for a little while at different times. So, that bar was it was like the center of that scene, where the Strokes came out of, and the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and all those cool bands, and we were never a cool band, but that bar was so cool, it even made us feel cool. We'd be there and you'd see Julian and Nick and all these guys, and Johnny T, the guy that owned it, is a very good friend of Fran's. And, it was just a cool place where it wasn't like a Groucho club where it's all members and it's all kind of a bit into itself. It was just everybody there was just super cool. They just were nice, mellow. Nobody bothered anybody. Nobody was kind of fanning over Julian Casablancas or whatever. It was just a cool place. And we ended up filming a video there. So you can see what it looks like, actually, if you look up the video for Mother, which is a song from Where You Stand. We kind of did a kind of daft, one of our, daft videos where Andy's working in the bar and he was washing the dishes, and then we all get together and have to play a show at Webster Hall. And we actually did it in real life. We played the Webster Hall that night, filmed us in Webster Hall, and then went back to black and white to kind of have the party afterwards. It was a great place, and obviously sad it's not there, but nice that it's commemorated, and really one of Fran's best songs. I think it's a wonderful song.
Yeah, absolutely, I would agree. And how did Chris Martin and Brandon Flowers get involved with the track?
Well, we were really struggling. The hardest part of making this record was working out the track listing, trying to work out what order the songs. We just couldn't do it. I mean, God knows how many emails went back and forth, but hundreds, literally hundreds. I think we might have gone through every possible permutation. We got snowblind, and when you're dealing with the track listing, it sounds old fashioned and these days of streaming and Spotify and all that, but it's important to us. And when you get that snowblindness, you suddenly think this record could be, if we get it wrong, get the track listing wrong, it's like a film editor. They get all the footage and they can make any film they want, and it could be terrible if you put things in the wrong order. So you get the fear a little bit. And Fran was like, I've lost the plot. I don't know what to do. I'm going to call in the cavalry. And so he called in the cavalry in the shape of Chris Martin, and because they live pretty close to each other. And he's like, Chris, can you come and help? Well, I can't doubt what what the order is for this record. And so Chris came out. They went for a drive, listened to all the songs, and Chris, he's an enthusiast. He's like an absolute fan, and he was just like so enthusiastic about the songs, so into that, and really, I think they listened to it a couple of times. Then they went back to the house, and he immediately sat down at the piano and started, and he learned Raze the Bar in his head, in the right key, learned all the words just sitting in the car, and started playing it, and he singing it, and Fran was like, "Oh, that sounds good. Would you be up for doing some backing vocals in the chorus?" And Chris was like, "Yeah, sure, but you should get other people in." And so Fran called Brandon. Once Chris had done his bit, Fran called Brandon and said, "Would you be up for doing a bit?" And so Brandon did some lovely little harmonies, and it just sounded great with the two of them and us singing. It was like, it's enough of a kind of collegiate, convivial, arms round your mates kind of song. So and yeah, that's how it all came about, and we managed to get a good track listing as well.
Yeah, the track listing is very important. You have to figure out, side A. I mean, would you think of along the lines of a vinyl? What's going to be side A, what's going to be side B?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we got stuck in having LA Times as the opening track, but suddenly, when Chris suggested putting it last, it was like, oh yeah, that's what to do, because it's just too aggressive to open the record with. And it seems like if you open the record with that, you have to continue in that vein. But closing the record with that, it opens up all kinds of possibilities for what comes next. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the title track, LA, it's actually my favorite track on the album.
Oh, great.
Fran's literally rapping,
Well, we stay away from the R word. Scottish rap is a dirty word. We kind of made a peace with it being in that vein by thinking more along the lines of Arab Strat, like a Scottish spoken word, very sweary. That was how we kind of made ourselves comfortable with it. But yeah, it's a really interesting song, because actually that piece of music we wrote together in like 10 years ago. It came from a studio game. Do you know that thing, the game, The Exquisite Corpse, where somebody does a drawing and then folds the paper, and then the next person does a drawing connected to that, but doesn't see what's on the other bit of paper.
Don't know that.
And then they fold it again, and then you end up with a weird kind of drawing of a person that nobody knows what's gone before. We did that with LA Times, where I think Andy went in, played something, then I went in, played something on top of what Andy had played, and then muted what Andy had played, and then Neil came in, played to what I had played, then muted what I had played, then Fran went in and played to what Neil had played, and then we did that like 3 times. So you end up with kind of like, it's like a blind, a deaf jam, you know what I mean? And so that piece of music came out of one of those games, and it had been there, it had just been there, kind of bubbling away in the background for years. And then Fran came up with this kind of lyric. He was listening to it, and he just came up with this lyric, very aggressive, kind of very sweary lyric, to go over the top of this really beautiful kind of flowing piece of music that is just, it's a very interesting song, very interesting, because it's almost like we were talking about the dichotomies and the polarities of poverty and wealth and all of those things. It's like that is in that song, this aggression and this beauty.
Yeah, I love it. What song on the album do you feel most connected to?
Alive. At the moment, and that might be because we are playing it again. It's got a kind of emotional weight to it. I think it's because the band have been through, all of us, all 4 of us, have been through a lot of seismic shifts and big life changes, and big ups upsetting moments, you know, deaths and divorces and all of the big stuff that happens, you know, in life. And yeah, it's been a rough kind of few years in a lot of ways for all of it, all four of it. And Alive, I don't know, it just feels like a statement of we've been through this, but we've come out the other side, and we're focused and we're hungry and we're ready to really give this a shot. We feel like there's unfinished business, and it's almost like Alive as a statement of that. We're still alive, you know. We're still here.
And what is that unfinished business? I mean, you'd have had sold millions of records, had hit albums, you've headlined Glastonbury. You know, what would be next on the musical bucket list for Travis?
Just to, it's you play every show like it's your first show or your last show, and we always have done that. But it feels like we're in a very, very good spot in terms of how we're playing, how focused we are, how we're feeling. It's just, you know, we believe in ourselves. You know, I think there's been a lot of points maybe over the years where we've maybe lost that a little bit, but we believe in ourselves again. We believe it's still the four of us, still the same four guys. Can't think of many bands where that's the case, and we are hungry to prove that we are good, that we are as good as we think we are, and we're hungry to deliver. We're like postmen, you know. We're delivering the songs, you know. That's it. We are in the public service industry, you know. We are there to deliver people's bookmarks for their lives, you know. So we know that the songs are important to people. That's an honor. It's a humbling privilege, and we go out every night to deliver that mail as best we can, and we understand that the songs, if they're important to people, they soundtrack their lives. They soundtrack births and deaths and marriages and all sorts, and that's a responsibility that we take seriously. You know, we're serious about it, and we don't take that responsibility lightly.
If people want to understand the music of Travis, what are the 5 songs they should listen to?
Oh wow! 10 albums in, that's a lot to choose from.
If I was to make a playlist of 5 Travis
songs. Okay. Well, obviously you have to start with All I Want to Do Is Rock. That was our statement of intent. That was our clarion call. That was the first song we played together live. Then I'm just going through the records. I mean, it's a toss-up but I would say you then would play Driftwood. It's got the lyrical beauty, kind of poetry to it, and it's also got that incredible Nigel Godrich atmosphere to it, and it's a lovely performance by the band. So it's got this beautiful flow to it. Then I would probably pick Side as kind of, that's a big song. Yeah, that shows the kind of the band can be powerful as well as delicate. And then, oh God, this is hard. This is hard, man. I tell you.
No pressure.
I would put Alive last. So there's one more to pick. Closer. That's you know, shows the emotional heft. I would put Closer. So All I Want to Do Is Rock, Driftwood, Side, Closer, Alive.
Great choices.
I think that's a pretty well-rounded introduction to Travis.
Well, Travis have released 9 albums prior to LA Times. Now I'm going to mention a few, and I just want you to, if you can tell me briefly what comes into your head when I mention each one. The Man Who.
Nigel Godrich. That's the record that is most similar, probably, in terms of emotionally how it feels to LA Times. It's again, that was a that came out of a lot of seismic shifts in our lives. There was heartbreaks, and there was moving out of a home for the first time, moving to London, big things. Fran's granddad, who was the closest thing he had to a dad, died. Obviously, the band changed. I came in. There was big, huge life changes happened in the run up to making that record. And yeah, it's like that's a nice bookend between then and now.
Ode to Jay Smith.
That was us blowing the cobwebs away. We had done our 5 records with the great Andy McDonald, Independiente, who was our greatest champion and our best cheerleader, and the guy who bet the house on it. He did everything. He believed so much in the band that he was the greatest, really. He's not dead, by the way. So he's still alive. We saw him recently, but he's just a great guy. But we'd done the 5 records with him, and he was going on to do different things. And so we were kind of a little bit on our own, and we decided to use that kind of independence to make a record really quickly and in a different way. So we'd spent 3 years making The Boy With No Name, which is the 5th record. That's a long time spent making a record, far too long. But we were just trying to, we were trying to find ourselves a little bit. And so we decided, right, we're going to make this record really quick. We're going to write it in 2 weeks and record it in 2 weeks. That's it. So we went into a scuzzy rehearsal room just in Ladbroke Row, super cheap, just plugged everything in, turned everything up, and we wrote together in the room, playing live, playing loud, and then went into Rack Studios and recorded it in 2 weeks with Emery Dobbins. And it's just us letting off a bit of steam. It's probably the heaviest, rockiest record we've done. And I think sonically it could be better, but it was part and parcel of the whole thing. It was rough and ready, and it was a deliberate exercise in, blowing off a bit of steam.
And last one, 10 songs, your last album?
10 songs, unfinished business.
Really?
Because I like that record a lot. I think there's a lot of good songs on it. But we never got to tour it. And it doesn't feel like, I don't know, records are funny. It's almost like they're not complete until they're played live. And you get the response that's like you actually see them being listened to, see the new songs being listened to. Songs aren't finished until the listener experiences them, And I think that our only way of experiencing that is to play them live, feel what songs are working, feel what songs aren't working, maybe feel what ones people are really responding to. And so it feels like, I don't know, just slightly it's not that the record's unfinished, but it's just because we didn't play it live, it feels like unfinished business because of COVID, obviously, because we released it like right in the middle of lockdown.
Well, talking about touring, in December you'll be going on the Raze The Bar tour of the headline tour of the UK. So what's touring like now for Travis? Is it very sensible, or do you still get up the antics?
We are pretty sensible. We kind of, like I said, we take the responsibility of doing shows pretty seriously. We have fun. We have a lot of fun, but we understand that the show was the thing, and nobody's going to go out and get hammered, before a show, and you got to look after yourself as well. It's because it is, it's been nice doing the 45 minute set with the Killers. That's like, this is, this is quite lovely. Do 45 minutes and then off we go. But in between, on days off, we've been doing festivals. So jumping up to like doing an hour and a half or 2 hours from the nice cozy support slot that's kind of like, oh yeah, this is actually physically a kind of a thing, to do like your 2 hour. I mean, how McCartney does a 3 hour show when he's like in his 80s. That's unbelievable.
And Bruce
So
Springsteen.
and Springsteen as well. So we are focused on that and focused on looking after ourselves. And I went down to the gym yesterday in the hotel, and there's Andy on the treadmill, and then Neil's on the treadmill. I'm like, yeah, this is it. This is where we're at.
Rock and roll. Just a few more.
Sorry, just to interrupt. Interestingly, there's been a lot of that. The Killers have been quite inspiring because they're a bit younger than us. They're like maybe 10 years, or maybe not 10 years, but a little bit younger than us. But they really, really look after themselves. They really take care, and it's like they're kind of, instead of just going to the pub, they're going out and culturally seeing things, sightseeing, and taking in the where they are and actually being very present. They don't really drink. They're all in the gym. They're all together. It's like, yeah, I mean, and so it means that you look at them and you kind of go, that's why they are where they are. They really are. They're serious about it, and that's kind of rubbing off a little bit on us, I think. I mean, Fran has even started doing vocal warm-ups, which he has never done before. So this is good. This is good news.
I like to ask my guests the following questions. For us music fans, music is the soundtrack to our memories. What song or album, when you listen to it, brings back the best memories for you?
Ooh, that is really, wow, that's really hard. Bring back the best memories. Oh, I think there's an album by Simple Minds called Sparkle in the Rain.
Love it.
And it's a great record. And it brings back a whole load of memories to me of being 12, 13, 14. And I remember, obviously, Simple Minds was the first show I ever went to see. My sister took me to see them at Ibrox Park in 1986. And they started with Waterfront, which is from that record. So that takes me back to that first live music experience where it was like the Hunky Dory experience. It was mind blowing. And I just couldn't believe how powerful it was. And it was like a magnet. And we were sitting in the stand, me and my sister, and I just didn't, it was like I kind of lost my mind. And I just started running the way down the steps. Just I had to get on the pitch. It was like a magnet drawing me towards it. I had to get closer to the source of this power. And that was that. So that record really brings that back. And it also, because of that, I became obsessed with that album. And it was my first Sony Walkman as well. So I had the Walkman, and I just remember lying on the beach because we went to Greece, I think, with the family, just lying on the beach listening to that record on tape on repeat. And it was just this warm, beautiful, warm breeze, the sun and the smell of the sea, and just feeling absolutely enveloped in this music and this, again, atmosphere. It was they're very nice memories.
Yeah, great album, great band.
Yeah.
Simple Minds at Ibrox, wow.
Yeah, there's something else.
What song or album is your guilty pleasure?
I don't believe in guilty pleasures. I believe that no pleasure should be guilty.
See, I get 50-50 answers. Some people have loads. Some people say they don't believe in them.
Okay, as I said earlier, I've always been a pop guy, right? Always been. I was never tribal about music. I was never like, I'm a goth or I'm a metal guy or I'm this or ever. It was always I was always a pop person because I've got the sensibilities of a teenage girl because of my upbringing, but that stays deep, So none of it's guilty, because normally when people talk about guilty pleasures, it's like pop music. It's like something that kind of maybe not cool or whatever. But it's always been like that. And when you're a pop guy, you take it song by song. You don't go, I'm kind of pinning my flag to this mast. You take it song by song. So if I love a song by Wham, or I love a song by, Guns N' Roses, it's the same thing. It's the same feeling. you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll kind of, I don't really have guilty pleasures. It's all just pleasures.
No, that's a fair one. Last one, Dougie. If you could
Yeah.
go back and relive one musical moment from your career, what would it be?
This is a weird one, right? I this is not really in context of career. This is context of friendship. I made friends when I lived in London. I made friends with Robin Hitchcock, brilliant songwriter. Was in the Soft Boys, brilliant artist, and we got really pally. And he would have these nights at a pub called the Three Kings. It was called the Feghorn, and you would go down to these nights, and everyone would just be having a few beers, and there'd always be some interested folks sitting around, you know, the musicians. He was friends with everybody, you know, he just knew, you know, he still does, just knows everybody, and everybody loves Robin. And but these nights were legendary. They were fantastic for, you know, who would be around there. And so one night I went along to one of these. It was like a charity one. It was for Médecins Sans Frontières. Because it was a charity one, it was a really interesting group of people. And I wasn't going to play. I was just going to hang out and just have a good time. So it was about halfway through the night, Robin said, Dougie, come up and do Young Americans, because I'd done like an acoustic version of Young Americans at one of these things. He's like, come up and do Young Americans. So I was like, oh man, I'm a couple of pints deep here. And that's a lot of words to remember. And also the band, right, was John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin on bass, Robin on guitar, Peter Buck from REM on lead guitar, and Bill from Nine Inch Nails on drums, and me singing. And I was like standing there going, oh shit, I'm wrecking it. But it was fantastic. It was just, they were so brilliant, just proper. Robin always said, he's like, you know, that's the thing, you're a lifer, you're in this for life. And that's what all these buddies are like. They're all these guys are just lifers, and they could just do it. And it was just so great. It was I still kind of can't believe it happened, but I do have the proof. In the form of a record that was on the charity auction. It was signed by all of us that I bought for the charity. And it was just amazing. It was an amazing night, and that was an incredible moment. And I just remember Peter Buck coming up at the end and going, that was great, but man, you should have told me about the key change.
Amazing. Well, Dougie, that's me done. Is there anything you would like to mention before we wrap up? Anything coming up in the immediate future?
Well, we're just excited for the record to come out. We get, you know, and then we'll be touring all over the shop. So, you know, come and see us. We're in a good place.
Yeah. No, I'm really loving the album. I wish you all the best with it. It's fantastic.
Thanks so much.
Well, thanks for taking the time, Dougie, and hopefully you have a good gig tonight.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
So Dan, get down to the gym.
Time for a jog.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Cheers, man. Bye.
Bye.